So I identify myself as, um, I always tell people that I'm Chinese, although I guess I should say Chinese American. Um, and I identify as a mom and as a child and adolescent psychiatrist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Um, it's interesting when people say that they feel like they shouldn't say how they see themselves. Would you expand on that a little bit? I mean, we're diversity and culture committee doing this, and so it's useful to, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about how someone makes that distinction when they're identifying themselves. When you said Chinese versus Chinese American, you feel like you should say Chinese American.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Just try it. It's sometimes it's hard to keep up with like all the changes and think, like people would say Oriental and now they say Asian. And then do I say Chinese or do I say Asian? And then is it Asian American? Is it American born Chinese? So do you know what I mean? Like I feel that, and it's hard. It's just hard to keep up. But I have always said that I'm Chinese. I was born in the States. So I guess because of that, then maybe like like I said, maybe I should be saying Chinese American. I don't know. But I always say Chinese unless I will say this, unless somebody asks me kind of confrontationally. I don't know. You can kind of get a feeling sometimes when people are being rude and they're like, "What are you?" And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Where are you? What are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Chi." I'll sometimes I'll say I'm American, and then they'll say, "No, I mean you know, like where are you from?" And I'll be like, "Well, I was born in Wisconsin." And then they'll be like, "No, so like where are your like, what country are your parents from?" And then but so when people are asking sort of confrontationally like that, and I have experienced that. Um
That's a big microaggression that we
yeah, exactly,
talking about.
exactly. And then I will say it sort of depends on the context. I will say I'm American. And I think it drives people crazy. I mean, those people who are asking that way. Yeah, you're right. It's a microaggression.
Right, it's a macroaggression, I guess
Yeah,
we could
totally
even
macro.
say. It may not
Yeah,
be
because you get a feeling. Yeah.
yeah, and you feel like somebody's just not
Yeah.
accepting
Exactly.
you
Then I will
and
say I'm American. I was
right,
born in Wisconsin.
exactly, yeah, so I think it is important and it's useful, because in none of the interviews that I've done yet have people talked about how the vocabulary often changes, and so it's, am I Black? Am I African American? Right?
Mhm.
How am I going to see myself? How am I going to describe myself? And so I know I broke it down kind of to the ethnicity aspect of it is and my daughter kind of talks about the fact that she's descended from slaves, just to clarify it for
Okay.
people, because she is
Uh-huh.
also asked, "What are you?"
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and I feel sometimes I feel like it's not right that we that I have this doubt, because I'm like, why should I doubt like how I identify myself?
I
Like if I'm using the right vocabulary or using the right term for now for this period of time. What inspired me to be a psychiatrist is I just really like hearing people's stories.
okay.
Um, so I actually went to grad school before medical school, and I had just finished like my qualifying exam, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so hard. This is not for me. Like I'm not cut out to be like a researcher."
Uh-huh.
Um, and I thought I just really like kids, and I really like um I really like working with kids and I really like talking to kids. And so I said to myself, I just want to like be either a pediatrician or be a child psychiatrist. And it was like at that moment. Like, and and I thought then the more I thought about it, and then like I shadowed some pediatricians and I just felt like, for the outpatient in outpatient, a lot of times
Uh-huh.
uh, there's sort of like well child visits.
Uh-huh.
And they, so if a child is healthy, then you see them like once a year and you get to watch them grow, but you don't have as much time to like get to know them and have a conversation with them. So I was like, okay. So now I've decided I'm going to be a child psychiatrist.
Because you get the longer story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have time to talk to them and hear what they have to say, and
Mhm.
you get to know them better. Yeah. So I've been involved with ACAP um since since residency. Basically because I knew I wanted to go into child and adolescent psychiatry.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so I think there was like a community psychiatry committee, and so I was on that. I had written a letter saying, saying that I was interested, and then so I worked with them for maybe like a year or two before I think they sort of that committee no longer existed.
Okay.
So then but I still wanted to be involved with ACAP. And so I wrote a letter to see like, what positions, I mean, what committees had, were looking for people. Yeah. And so, they said, they gave me a list of a few. And then, I was just interested in the adolescent psychiatry committee. So I joined that in like, oh my gosh, like 2010 or something.
Mhm.
So I was, I think like a fellow. And then or maybe it was 2000, I don't know, something like that. And then I joined as a fellow or maybe like right as, I had just finished fellowship.
Mhm.
And um, then I remember being at that first meeting and talking about something that I had seen about, like adolescents, like sexting and then getting in trouble with that. And so Lois Flaherty was the chair
Mhm.
and Adele Martell was also on the committee. And they both were like totally encouraging me to run with this idea and do a clinical perspectives or something. And I was like, what? I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here and maybe say one thing and I'll be proud of myself if I do. Not all of a sudden have like these, you know, these great like mentors like encourage me to start presenting at ACAP and write something and submit a proposal. And so that was my first experience. And I really think of, especially Lois as like my mentor in terms of, like, she's a female psychiatrist and she's been doing this for a long time. And she like just kind of took me under her wing and like really encouraged me to do all these things. And, you know, yeah, that was pretty amazing. So anyway, so I've been involved and then uh, um, Lois stepped down and then somebody else became like co-chair. And I guess because I was active or whatever, um, wanted me to be his co-chair. So then that's what I've been doing. And so next year will be my last year as co-chair. And then I guess I'm off the committee. But
Yeah, so you have made contribution and get your gold watch and
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So so I'm involved in that. And then I've been a member of APA. I used to go to the meetings, but they're kind of big. And so I haven't yeah. Oh, I also got a minority fellowship, the APA, like I think it was the AstraZeneca minority fellowship. So I went to a lot of APA meetings when I was in I guess residency and fellowship. And then yeah, like I said, it's just kind of big. And so then I started focusing more on just ACAP. But I'm still a member of APA. And then I'm Lois actually invited me to kind of join some meetings for the group for the advancement of psychiatry. So I think I'm not like an official member, but like I go to the meetings and then I guess once I meet everybody in person, then maybe they'll decide if I'm like officially on the committee or on the adolescent committee for GAP. And
Great.
thanks. And then yeah, see, like
Yeah,
Lois
it's
just
such good mentoring.
yeah, exactly. She's just been so she's encouraged me to do so many things. I've written chapters with her and books. Like it's just been great. I feel like and I've said this to other people, I feel like she fundamentally like changed or determined the course of my involvement with ACAP well, actually when she and Adele like encouraged me to do that. Like I was just gonna go to talks and listen to them. I never thought that I was going to like submit a proposal and talk or chair a talk or something like that. I never thought that. And so I mean I never thought I was gonna chair a committee in ACAP. So I feel like um she encouraged me to do that and showed me that that was possible. So that's been kind of cool. And then the one other thing that I was going to say, this is not with a psychiatry organization, but I've also really been involved with the AAP
Okay.
because I'm the liaison from adolescent psychiatry to the Committee on Adolescence for the American Academy of Pediatrics. So that has been such a great experience. Like I wrote like a clinical report on psychosis in adolescence, and I'm working on the revision of the suicide clinical report. And so, I mean, I've been able to work with some great pediatricians and um, been part of these like um, sort of papers and reports and yeah, clinical reports and policy statements from the AAP, and that's been really great too. And so I was so excited when I wasn't excited about moving to Notre Dame, but I was so excited when this integrated behavioral health opportunity arose because I was like, this is so great. I love working with pediatricians, and now I get to do that every day. In terms of getting involved with bigger sort of organizations and like, I think you should take every opportunity to get involved. I mean, the other great thing is that a lot of times for trainees, they have like reduced, either it's free or reduced like membership fees. And so I feel like you should just take every opportunity because like me, I just, I knew that I was interested in child and adolescent psychiatry. I think for ACAP, the fee to join if you're a trainee is like zero, $0. And so I like I said, I without you know uh, becoming part of that committee and having this mentor, I don't think I would be as involved as I am now. And so I think it really gives you an opportunity to see like see beyond like what your world. Like it shows you what other people are doing, and then you meet other people who are doing great things. And um, yeah, I think it's just a great opportunity that people should totally take.
A door that we should have people walking through.
Yes, for sure.
Is there,
Well, can I add one thing?
sure.
And because like I had such great mentorship, I have tried as the co-chair of our committee with my co-chair to like bring in like fellows and other trainees and early career psychiatrists and really like sort of like from the beginning try to get them involved. So if I have an idea for a submission, I'll be like, hey, and I'll ask somebody who just joined or whatever, do you want to try this? Would you be interested in presenting with me? And for a lot of them, it's like their first um, presentation at like a national conference. So yeah, I feel like I've tried to sort of pass down what has been like bestowed upon me. Being a child psychiatrist is it can be really rewarding,
Uh,
but it's also challenging, right? Because you're not just working with the kid. So I feel like I naively was thinking, oh, I just want to be a child psychiatrist so I can talk to kids and hear their stories. But then, once you really start, you're like, oh gosh, I have to talk to their parents. So I have to like call the school and I have to, you know, so there's a lot that goes into it, but I really um, feel like it's just really, it can be really, really rewarding too. Um, like to be able to sort of, um, see the kids early and try to like either prevent something bad from happening or at least mitigate like you know um
me,
mitigate like sort of the negative things that could happen from a diagnosis. And I think that part is like really amazing. But it's also, I mean, it's like with great power comes, great responsibility, right? And so, because sometimes you're looking at this kid and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like we've tried like a billion ADHD medications and nothing seems to be helping. What am I doing? And, like, but to be able to like sort of um, work with the patient, work with the parents, and try to be like a team, I feel like that definitely helps, because then it's not just like you saying, "Hey, you need to do this and you need to do this." It's like a team approach, and I feel like that also makes it more rewarding, even when the outcomes, are not ideal, I guess,
Mhm.
or initially, because sometimes the other thing is like if you work with them long enough, things do like tend to get better. It's just sometimes, it's not like quick, like, first ADHD medication works or first SSRI works. So yeah. But as long as you're working together, I feel like that relationship with the family also um just makes it worthwhile. There have been times when people have like sort of outright said things that are like, I mean, that I would consider racist. Um, you know, uh like when I was at Catholic Charities, there was a patient that I had seen who, I'd seen her a few times, and then they decided they didn't want medication. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. And so then they left, but then they came back like, a year later or whatever, requesting a different psychiatrist. And so then the psychiatrist was talking to them, and she was like, I see that you saw Dr. Hua before, was something, because we all work together and we try to not have people jump around with psychiatrists and things. And they were like, oh, well, she had an accent. We couldn't really understand her. This is a patient that had seen me like, at least 3 or 4 times. I do not have an accent. And so, I mean, if anything, I have a Midwestern accent. So I feel like, there are things like that. And even here, like where I work now, I was working with somebody. Well, they were just trying to get me set up on the computer, and they thought that um they were they were talking to somebody else about me later and said, "Oh, well, she has an accent," or, you know, and it was just like, so I feel like people look at me and assume things. Um, and so, yeah, so that's kind of like, not great. And then, um, there was a time when a kid came in, I asked him a question and he yelled at me and said, he said, "You're Chinese. I hate Chinese." And he wouldn't, and then I kind of like was wondering like what his mom was gonna say. And she was like, "You do not say that in front of people." And I was like, "What?"
No, and so I'm imagining that many of the folks that are providing us these videos have had these experiences. And so how do you work your way through those? How do you handle those with the patients? How do you get yourself home without breaking something?
Yeah. Mm, well, I definitely have like colleagues that I can talk to, so that's helpful, and obviously my husband. Um, but like in the moment, sometimes you're just so like taken aback. Like I was thinking like I should use this as a teaching moment, and I couldn't, because, and I'll tell you the reason I felt like I couldn't first. I mean, other than like the shock that had come up, but there was secondary shock because of mom's response.
Right.
So I was like, what do I say if this is something that's probably going on at home? You know what I mean? I think I might have said, "Oh, that's not a very nice thing to say," right? So, but I didn't have like, there wasn't, besides saying that, there wasn't like a teaching moment on like, "Oh, you shouldn't judge people by their," you know what I mean, by their race or whatever. Like, and so I mean, I think when I went home, I was thinking like, was that like a lost opportunity? And I was like, I don't think that was the time, honestly.
Right.
And
Right.
so, I don't know, maybe it was a lost opportunity, but I felt like, I kind of felt like if I had said anything then, it would have looked like I was being defensive, and I didn't want that either. You know what I mean? So I felt like the best way to respond was not like,
So
that's
how did
sorry, but just I hmm?
how did you respond?
Yeah, so I was like, "Oh, that's not a very nice thing to say." I could, so, but yeah. So,
Okay. So maybe you did help them learn a lesson.
maybe. I don't know. I was kind of taken aback by mom's response. I'll admit
I can
that.
only imagine.
Honestly, I think it's just like that they listen
Okay.
and they don't really have to like tell me what to do or tell me anything next or what, they just listen so I can just kind of vent it out and then
And then go on to the next thing.
yeah, but
Yeah.
that's
And
yeah, there's no point in dwelling. You can't like
right. You can't. You can't.
I think that sometimes I also like well, I mean, it depends on the relationship that you have with the family as well. And even though like, you have an identified patient, like
Mhm.
sometimes like I use the opportunity to like model, you know, for the parents. So if I see a kid like sitting really nicely and coloring or something, I will like comment on that and I'll be like, oh my goodness, I love how you're sitting there so quietly while your mom and I are talking and you're coloring so nicely and look at the lovely colors that you're using, you know, and I think um, that can sometimes help. And then sometimes like if you have like a really good relationship or good enough, you can actually, sort of help the parents and challenge some of the things that they say, like
And be better parent.
right. And so, when like I had one patient at Catholic Charities who oh my goodness, he was one of my first patients. And when I started there and gosh, there was just he was constantly being hospitalized and mom was saying all these things like negative things about him like she couldn't it was really hard for her to say anything positive. And so like just pushing her, come on, is there anything? Have you do you ever like get to go out and he does something or you just have a quiet moment, you know, between yourselves where things are positive and like pushing them like and kind of like letting them know it's not always easy to think of something
Mhm.
good or positive. Like sometimes you really have to work. And that's okay and that's good because then the kid sees that you're you're pushing yourself too, you know? And but I would say like, look, you're telling me that this is happening and I believe that it's happening at home. But when he's in the office, he's doing great. When he's at school, he's doing great. When he's at the hospital, he's doing great. So when somebody's doing great in all settings but home, then there's something going on at home. And so to be able to say that, like to feel that you can say that, I feel like is very it's ultimately like helpful to the parents. And then it makes you feel like you're doing something other than just like throwing medications at the kids. Like you're acknowledging that something else is going on and trying to do something to address it. And I feel like that's like a really cool thing, right? You're not just like, oh, here, try this medication and try this medication or whatever. You're like trying to um
You're making things better for the kid at home.
like a more permanent change. You know what I mean? Not just a band-aid. That's right. Not just a band-aid, but yeah, a better solution to make things to improve things at home, I guess. So I feel like sometimes working with parents is really challenging, but other times, like some of the times when I feel like I've had the most rewarding day is when I've been able to um I feel like I've been able to get through to a parent and been like, okay, why don't we try this? Because whatever you're doing at home right now is not working. So yeah. Growing up, I always took care of my younger siblings and I babysat. I really loved kids. I knew I loved kids and I knew I wanted to do something with kids. So I actually thought I was going to be a teacher or something like that. And then, um, so my mom, one day, sometime when I was in high school, was talking about my grandfather, who he died when I was like 2. So I never got to meet him. He lived in Taiwan and he was an OBGYN.
Mhm.
And so in Chinese culture, there's the Chinese zodiac, right?
Mhm.
And so the animals, and I'm a rabbit, and my grandfather was a rabbit too. And so my mom always like talked about this, how we had this connection, and how, like he would listen to recordings of my voice that she would send back to Taiwan, and that we had this connection because we were both rabbits, right? And so growing up, I always felt like, oh yeah, I had this connection, even though I'd never met my grandfather. And so she one day said, "Ah, I wish you could be a doctor like your grandfather." And then I was like, oh shoot, now I have to be a now I need to be a doctor. And so, yeah, so I feel like there are some people who have these like stories of how, there was mental health, their brother had schizophrenia or something like that. And I don't feel like, Asians often don't talk about mental health and stuff. So, um, I yeah, but it was my mom saying that, and the connection to my grandfather, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, this connection with my grandfather. I have to be a doctor like him." And I don't know why I didn't think about it until my mom actually said it, and I was like, "Oh." Then after that, then I was like, "Okay, I really want to be a doctor." But yeah. And then I was
Absolutely.
what did you say?
Happy.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like like that culture, like you honor your parents and you make them happy, and you know that I knew that my dad had come to the United States to make like a better life for himself and have a good future for his family, his future family, and his future children. And so just there's always this sort of like
It's
pressure to like do well and make your parents proud. And yeah. So that was in high school, and then I was talking to you earlier about how so then I didn't actually I applied to medical school in college, and I didn't get in, which I think um I had gotten into every college I applied to. I had gotten these research fellowships. I had gotten scholarships to attend, college. And so I just kind of assumed that getting into medical school would be easy too. And it wasn't. Um, so then I decided to go to graduate school because that was like sort of the best next option.
Mhm.
And I went to school at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. And then I think I told you midway through, I was like, oh, this is not what I'm meant to do. But, I finished what I start. So um, the last year of my graduate program, I applied for medical school. And by then I was in state. So I was able to get into SUNY Downstate.
Mhm.
And then and at that point, I already knew that I wanted to go into psychiatry and then child analysis and psychiatry. So yeah, that's
You are.
my story.
You are. And you've had a varied career. You have been an attending. You have worked you're working in integrative health now, right?
Yeah,
And you worked at
a community
uh,
mental health clinic before I came here.
okay. And
Then
so
before that, I was at University of Michigan.
right. So you've had a wide range of things that you've done.
Yeah. Well, I also wanted to share that I know I talked about Lois Flaherty as being like a really great mentor that's continued. I want to say that Tim Willens at MG, he's been really like he right when I started when I started my fellowship at Mass General, like he had talked to me and said, like I know you're interested in psychosis, and we have this research project that you could join in on, and so that was like a really great opportunity. And so I guess I guess if there's anything to say, it's that that you should kind of like look at everything as a possible opportunity, and to open yourself to these opportunities. Like I feel like if I hadn't said, "Oh, well, I'd like to join ACAP and see if I can join a committee or something," and I must have read something somewhere about like trainees getting involved, so just keep your eyes open for those types of things and apply and meet people and talk and share your ideas, and even if you think they're silly, and and people will remember that you're interested, and people will like reach out to you and they will ask you, hey, I remember you talked about this, would you be interested in doing this chapter with me? Or would you be interested in joining this committee or something like that? And I just feel like you should just take all those opportunities. I mean, obviously you have to shoot, we didn't even talk about this work-life balance, right? Um,
Right. Oh, you're right. We did.
but yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but obviously, so you take these opportunities like within reason, right? So, but I feel like I've been sort of really lucky in that, when I didn't get accepted to medical school coming right out of college, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most awful thing in the world. But then I decided to go to grad school in New York, like in the Bronx. And so I made, like I made a ton of friends. I like joined a bunch of different groups. I was in Manhattan like every weekend. Like I like blossomed as a person. You know what I mean? I became more like confident in myself and in my abilities to do things and in like seeing the world and like trying different foods and like going to shows. And I mean, I just I feel like things happened the way they were supposed to. And that's
Mhm.
how I met my husband, during, my fellowship in Boston. Like my track would have been totally different if I had gotten into
Understood.
medical school when I thought I wanted to, um, and so I have these beautiful kids and you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I just,
So our path is there.
yeah,
We
but you just have to be
we just
open
have to
to,
be open to it.
yeah,